The NFL offseason is finally upon us. The time of year when things begin to get weird and speculation runs rampant. Fans on social media are left to make their own entertainment as they wait for football to return in the fall. Trade rumors, mock drafts, and free agent predictions galore. But there is one question that is inevitably brought up every year regarding the coaching carousel. Who would win in an NFL head coach battle royale? Well, on this week's very special episode of Football Ancestry, we answer just that. This episode is a little different than normal, but if you'd like to see more content like this sprinkled in every once in a while, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to let me know that. Alright, with that being said, let's find out which NFL head coach has what it takes to be the last man standing. In order to find this out, I'm using a video game simulator known as Battle Arena, which allows you to make custom battle royales. Characters are given stats based on 1 through 10 in strength, agility, endurance, skill, and luck. For our purposes, I define strength and agility by their basic definitions, making judgments based on coach's muscle mass and perceived health and mobility. I defined endurance by analyzing coaching career length, as well as how often they blew a lead in the fourth quarter or made a fourth quarter comeback. Skill was defined as a coach's football IQ and how dominant they were in terms of X's and O's. Lastly, luck was determined by how much a coach was impacted by outside forces, whether positive or negative. Once those categories were defined, a coach was given a skill point between 1 and 10 in each of those categories. Points 8 through 10 were determined good or great, and were reserved for those in the top 5 of those categories. Points 1 through 3 were determined to be horrible or bad, and were reserved to be in the bottom 5 of those categories. And 4 through 7 were classified as okay, which could be applied to anyone. This is where things will get a little controversial. Let's look at the bottom 5 in each category. Cliff Kingsbury was given the lowest rating in strength, tied with Zach Taylor and Kyle Shanahan, for their relatively thin frames and lack of general muscle mass compared to their counterparts. The lowest in agility is a 3-way tie as well, between Andy Reid, Mike McCarthy, and Bruce Arians. The lowest in endurance was given to Kyle Shanahan because of his famously blown leads in 2 different Super Bowls. The lowest in skill was given to Zach Taylor and Mike McCarthy. And the lowest in luck was a tie between Brandon Staley and David Culley. Staley was given that just because he's on the Chargers and therefore instantly has a default bad luck rating. David Culley because he's going into one of the most unlucky situations in Houston. I'm sure you all agreed with everything I said and therefore have no disagreements about my bottom 5 whatsoever. So I'll move on to the top 5 in each category, where I'm sure you will all agree completely again. So the strongest coach was a tie between Dan Campbell and Brian Flores. The most agile was given to Mike Vrabel. The best endurance rating was given to Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. The best skill was given to Bill Belichick. And lastly, the best luck was given to Kevin Stefanski for being able to turn around the seemingly forever hopeless Browns. Now that the behind-the-scenes data has been clarified, let's finally jump into the simulation. All 32 NFL head coaches, one arena. No random deadly events, no random landmines, just the coaches in the wilderness against one another. Alliances are allowed to be formed if coaches decide they want to team up. Alright, and here we go. Immediately, right off the bat, Urban Meyer makes an alliance with Cliff Kingsbury. A smart move considering Urban Meyer is one of the weaker coaches in the battle. Unfortunately, that didn't last long, as Cliff Kingsbury immediately tried to escape the arena by digging a tunnel, but was buried alive in the process. Kingsbury is awarded our first death, and he did it to himself. At this point, Sean McVay decides to laugh. I'm not sure why, but something about his deeply alone and terrifyingly dangerous situation he finds amusing. A little bit later, McVay allies Pete Carroll. Maybe Carroll can figure out what McVay finds so amusing. Then our first murder finally occurs, and it's at the hands of Matt Nagy of all people? Nagy grabs Ron Rivera by the head and pushes him to the ground, and then kicks him to death. My lord, dark. And who would have expected this from a lower level coach like Matt Nagy? Across the arena, the two teams that share a stadium decide to form an alliance, as Robert Saleh of the Jets reaches an olive branch over to Joe Judge of the Giants. But Robert Saleh admits that despite being one of the top 5 strongest in the entire arena, he just doesn't want to become a killer. Mike Vrabel, also one of the strongest in the entire arena, decides he also does not want to become a killer. I guess we have a few gentle giants out there. Suddenly, our next killing occurs, at the hands of none other than Matt Nagy. Nagy tackles Zach Taylor to the ground and strangles him to death. Nagy needs to relax, man. He's out here like a wild animal with his back against the wall, which I guess is kind of like his current coaching situation. Pete Carroll then decides to take out a divisional opponent and beats Kyle Shanahan to death with his own fists. In the corner of the arena by himself, Dan Campbell finds the silence of the arena disturbing. Meanwhile, Matt Nagy strikes again. He's insane. Nagy beats David Coley to death. Who can stop Matt Nagy? John Harbaugh sees no other option and decides he's just going to ally Matt Nagy. It's the safest route at this point. Suddenly, a killing spree kicks off. Bill Belichick strangles Matt Rule with his bare hands. Brian Flores then grabs Joe Judge by the shirt and beats him to death with a brick. And in the middle of all this, Nick Sirianni begins to laugh. What a sociopath. And to end the spree, an epic battle plays out between two of our strongest and best competitors, Sean McVay and Mike Vrabel. McVay is good physically, with an 8 in strength and 9 in agility, as well as an 8 in skill. Meanwhile, Mike Vrabel is no joke either, with an 8 in strength and 10 in agility, and an 8 in skill as well. In the end of this tussle, however, it is Sean McVay who delivers a decisive blow to end Mike Vrabel. Not too long after, McVay continues on his hot streak and takes out the only person in the match who might be on a hotter streak than he is. He takes out the feared Matt Nagy. The Nagy monster has been slain. Mike Tomlin gets on the board and beats Frank Reich to death. Sean McDermott finally makes an appearance himself, unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons. He swallows some poison berries and dies alone. Urban Meyer, continuing to be useless, ends up having a bird steal some of his bread. Arthur Smith decides to go for one of the biggest names in the game and make a statement for himself. Arthur Smith grabs Bill Belichick by the shirt and beats him to death with a brick, avenging every Falcons fan for that horrible Super Bowl loss. Suddenly, another killing spree breaks out. Robert Saleh grabs Bruce Arians by the head and bashes it on the ground until he dies. Then, Brian Flores grabs Mike McCarthy by the head, pushes him to the ground, and kicks it until he dies. John Harbaugh joins in on the action and strangles the once mighty Sean McVay to death with his bare hands. Not too long afterwards, Arthur Smith continues his headhunting and brutally attacks and kills John Harbaugh, who was still coming off of his high of killing Sean McVay. Meanwhile, John Gruden trips over himself, and then, very shortly afterwards, begins contemplating winning the whole thing. Never change, Gruden. Never change. And now, quietly, Brian Flores becomes the biggest threat in the arena by claiming yet another victim. He suffocates Matt LaFleur to death. Sean Payton makes an appearance by gouging out the eyes of Vic Fangio. Jesus. Nick Sirianni grabs Mike Tomlin by the neck and puts him into a chokehold, suffocating him to death. Robert Saleh grabs Arthur Smith by the head, pushes him to the ground, and kicks him until he dies. I guess Arthur Smith played with fire one too many times. Sean Payton then trips Nick Sirianni, who lands face first into a sharp branch and dies. That's a tough way to go out. Flores then delivers some poetic justice. Not long after, he trips Sean Payton, who lands face first on a sharp branch and dies. And at this point, Brian Flores is on a full-on rampage. And he's not done. Later, Brian Flores approaches Robert Saleh in a battle of brutes. Flores is a 10 in strength and 9 in agility, almost maxed out physically, but he does have some middling stats in endurance, skill, and luck. Sala is similar, with a 9 in strength and 8 in agility, and a middle-of-the-road stats in the final 3 categories. In the end of this battle, Flores brutally attacks Robert Sala and kills him. Flores comes out on top of the Battle of the Brutes. Brandon Staley takes things into his own hands and builds a spear. Urban Meyer takes this moment to proclaim, "Leave it to me," a bold statement from one of the weaker coaches who has done nothing besides ally people stronger than him. Meanwhile, Dan Campbell, who has been alone peacefully by himself, just simply wants to go home. Out of nowhere, John Gruden quickly kills an unsuspecting Brian Flores. The mighty beast has fallen at the hands of a sneak attack. Perhaps Gruden's strong luck rating played a hand in his ability to unexpectedly beat Brian Flores? Either way, the 5-kill Flores has been extinguished. Brennan Staley decides he's had enough. He launches his recently crafted wooden spear right into the chest of Kevin Stefanski, killing him instantly. The luckiest head coach has died by the spear of the unluckiest head coach. Staley follows that up by immediately ripping out one of John Gruden's hands and slapping him to death with his own hand. Just a brutal and totally John Gruden way to die. But then, Staley can't handle the pressure of everything that he's done to this point and just snaps his own neck. He wouldn't be the head coach of the Chargers if he wasn't shooting himself in the foot. Urban Meyer continues to Urban Meyer and forms an alliance with Andy Reid. Dan Campbell stops for a moment and takes in the atmosphere. How peaceful. Mike Zimmer, who I forgot about and is stunningly still alive, eats poison berries and is no longer stunningly alive. Pete Carroll, chewing heavily on a piece of gum assuredly, laughs as he shoots a bow at the weaselly Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, who once proclaimed, "Leave it to me," can no longer be saved by his stronger allies and bleeds to death by the arrow in his neck. Pete Carroll then turns to Urban Meyer's ally, Andy Reid. Pete Carroll can see victory in sight, and he turns into an absolute lunatic. Pete bites Andy Reid's tongue and eyes out, leaving him for the dead. My God, Pete Carroll. Wild old man. And Pete Carroll, he thinks he's won. He stands alone in a pile of bodies, but over the hilltops, he sees a silhouette of a mountain of a man. Pete narrows his eyes and runs towards the figure. He swings his fist and delivers a punch to that of Dan Campbell. Campbell falls to the ground, but our strongest rated coach doesn't go out easily. His 10 strength rating gives him the power to get up. He bites off the kneecaps of Pete Carroll on his way up, and then delivers a decisive blow to the lunatic that is Pete Carroll. Dan Campbell is alone. Dan Campbell saved all of his strength for one battle and won it all with one final kill. Dan Campbell is the winner of the Football Ancestry NFL Head Coach Battle Royale. That concludes this video. Please subscribe to stay notified and let me know in the comments below if you agree with how the simulation turned out. Who do you think should have won? Let me know. And as always, I greatly appreciate you for making it to the end of this video. Next time, we will return to our regular content. Thanks for watching.